Hey everybody, and welcome to Mission Control Houston. I'm Kelly Humphreys, and with me is Mark Williams, who is one of the lead astronaut strength trainers, and he works with crews on to make them ready for space flights, and also to keep them healthy on orbit, and to get them used to coming back and living in gravity again. We're glad to be here with you and to answer your questions.
Are we all set? Should we go ahead and start asking some questions?
Yes, you may begin. Please go ahead with your first question.
My name is Claire. I live in Tacoma. How many jobs are there on the mission control?
In Mission Control, there are a lot of different jobs. There are right now, there are probably about 30 people here in Mission Control. Their team is led by a flight director, and then that flight director is in charge of the entire team. And then each of these folks has a specific area that they work in, whether it's spacewalking or whether it's environmental control systems or communication systems. And that whole team works together here. And then in addition, there are back rooms, as we call them, where they have additional specialists that may have a particular part of that system that they are really expert at. And then those folks all work together to bring that into the full team and make sure that we make the right decisions for the astronauts on orbit. And then, of course, we're also connecting with mission control centers around the world, since we have 5 different space agencies working on the International Space Station, representing 15 different countries. And so these folks here in mission control have similar counterparts in Munich, in Moscow, in Scuba Japan, in Saint-Hubert, Canada, and also in other areas of the country that help support their work here. Areas like Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama, where they help coordinate all the research on the space station. So a really big team. I couldn't give you an exact number, but here in Mission Control right now there's about 30 people.
My name is Emma, and I live in Seattle. And my question is, do you always work at the same job and do the same thing in mission control?
I'm going to bring Mark in on this a little bit. Most people work in a particular area and focus on that area at least for a portion of their time in mission control. However, a lot of people move around into different areas because you've got basically engineers and scientists for the most part that work in mission control, and they have a broad background in whatever area they're in. And so they can sometimes translate those over in different areas, and they like to do that to expand their careers, because a lot of these folks would like to, in addition to just working in mission control, they'd like to someday maybe be a flight director and be in charge. And so in order to get experience in different areas, they do that kind of thing. We also have people like Mark who work with the crews and help prepare them, and maybe you can talk about all the other support work.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've been here about 20 years. I worked in the exercise physiology lab doing research for about 4 or 5 years, and I've been currently in my job that I have now as the strength and conditioning coach for about 16 years.
Okay, does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Nadia. I live in Burnaby, BC, and my question is, what kind of education do you need to work in mission control?
Well, again, most of the folks that work in mission control are scientists or engineers. There are a lot of different engineering backgrounds. There's electrical engineering, there's mechanical engineering, there is aeronautical engineering, there's physics, math. Essentially, for education, you want to get a broad education in science, technology, and engineering. But what's really key is to find something that you love to do, because whenever you are trying to improve yourself, yourself and get ready for a career, it's important to be doing something that you like to do, because that's going to help you do it better, and it's going to help you focus on learning what you need to know, and then continuing as you get older and mature to learn more all the time. And it's going to inspire in you the idea of continuing to learn throughout your life, which everybody here in this room is definitely focused on doing that, because every time we do something in space, on the space station or on a spacecraft, we learn something new. Yesterday we had a problem on the spacewalk, and we had a brand new problem that we'd never had before. We had a bunch of water collected inside Luca Parmitano's helmet, and they had to come home early on the spacewalk. That's a new thing. We're learning from that. We're trying to figure out now what exactly happened, and it's that kind of learning attitude that you need to develop as much as anything as you're studying to try to get to work here.
My name is Jamie, and I live in Seattle. And this is my question. Can people who work in mission control become astronauts and vice versa?
As a matter of fact, yes. There are a number of astronauts who started out as flight controllers. Mark, you've worked with some of them. Maybe you can remember somebody who did that.
You know, off the top of my head, I can't remember actually somebody.
Well, I know that
off the top of my head.
I know that Shannon Walker, one of the Houston native, and Mark's a Houston native too. She started out as a flight controller and worked a variety of different jobs here before she became an astronaut. I'm trying to think of others off the top of my head, but there have been 5 or 6 different astronauts at least.
You also have, in here in Mission Control, you have flight surgeons, and there's been a few flight surgeons that have also moved from being a flight surgeon into the astronaut office as well.
Mike Barrett was a flight surgeon, and he moved into being an astronaut, spent 6 months on the space station.
Tom
Marshburn, who just got back from a 6-month stay on the space station as a doctor, and was also a flight surgeon. So yes, definitely a lot of people work in mission control and then become astronauts. And then once you're an astronaut, you work in mission control often because you serve as a spacecraft communicator, talking with the team on orbit, and in a way becoming a translator. Since you're an astronaut, you understand how an astronaut thinks and the kind of questions that an astronaut might have, and how best to present the information that needs to go to the astronaut. And so we utilize them a lot to help relay information back and forth to the crews.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Eula. I live on Mercer Island. Can you eat or drink or nap inside the mission control?
Yes, you can. Not so much napping, but people do have to eat and drink throughout their day. And a lot of times when you see the pictures of us here in Mission Control on NASA television, you'll see folks that have cookies up on the back deck of their consoles, or they'll be eating their lunch. And it's kind of a catch-as-catch-can kind of a thing. Everybody needs to eat. Mission control teams generally work about a 10-hour shift. They've got 8 hours worth of work that they do in the middle of the shift where they're the main person, but then they've got an hour before and after when they are handing off from their offcoming and ongoing team members, because this is a 24/7 operation over here, and you have to be able to share what happened on the previous shift so that you're ready to begin your next shift. And then when you go off, you got to make sure that your relief has all the information they need to do their jobs. And so we all bring our lunches here, and we usually eat them on console. We have very brief breaks here and there where we can leave the control room, but most of the time we have good communication with the space station, and so it's only you only get about 5 or 10 minutes per orbit. It takes 90 minutes for the space station to go around the world, and so about 5 or 10 minutes of that each orbit is your chance to go take a restroom break or grab something to drink. So you do have to kind of measure what you consume, because you don't want to have to run to the bathroom a lot.
Thank you.
I'm Sierra, and I live in Seattle, and my question is, what has been the most exciting event that you have had to deal with while in mission control?
Wow, I have been working in mission control myself for more than 20 years, and I've I've been involved in a lot of different events, some interesting spacewalks. Yesterday's spacewalk that got cut short was the second shortest spacewalk ever. It was an hour and 32 minutes long. I actually was here doing the Voice of Mission Control work when Mike Fink did the shortest spacewalk ever. That was actually a Russian spacewalk. It was on Expedition 9 a number of years ago. And he got outside, and his life support system was not properly connected, and so he had to come back in after only about 10 minutes outside. That has to be one of the most exciting and interesting times I had here in Mission Control.
My name is Brian Lunder. I live in Covington, Washington. My question is there a common language that all the space agencies use? Like, do the Russian cosmonauts talk to the Russian mission control in Russian, or do they talk to the Russian mission control in English, and vice versa? Is everything on the space station written in English, or is some of it still written in Russian?
The common language we use aboard the space station for everybody is English. And for mission control, we always deal in English when we go back and forth in terms of conversations. Each control center, though, from around the world, in Japan and Russia and Europe and Canada, of course, speaks their own native language when they're talking to the crews through their communication systems. And so there's some of that. But when we all need to get together and work an issue, we generally work it in English. The majority of things that are printed on board the space station are printed in English or on the computer screens in English, but there's a lot of Cyrillic as well in Russian because it's a totally different alphabet. There are also things that go up in Japanese, which has another different alphabet, and there's things, for example, for Canadian astronauts that go up bilingual in both English and French. And we try to help each of the crew members from their countries have a little bit of their home flavor in whatever we do, and we allow their control centers to talk with them in whatever language is natural for them, as well as in English.
Hello, my name is Nick Mallett. I'm from Olympia, Washington. And hypothetically speaking, if a team of 16 is sent to Mars, how large of a support crew would be needed to need to be provided back on Earth at Mission Control to support them?
Boy, that'd be a pretty big team to go to Mars. 16. That's a lot of mass to get into orbit and to get to Mars. One thing you need to remember about going there is it's going to take about 6 months, and if you can stop and think about how much food, water, air, and electricity we need to generate to do a mission of that long, you're probably going to be looking at smaller crews, especially early on a trip to Mars. We're working all the time here to minimize the number of people that we have in mission control, because having an efficient team work together doesn't always mean you have more people. We want to be able to access a lot of people who are experts in the different fields that are necessary to support the thing, but you don't necessarily want to have them on duty 24/7 all the time. So I would say probably you'd have a team similar to this kind of size that we have here in Mission Control, with 20 or 30 people when there's a lot of activity going on and the crew's awake. But then on weekends and when the crew's sleeping, just like we do here for the International Space Station, we staff down, and there's just 2 or 3 people, a flight director and a couple of people that monitor a lot of different systems so that we can minimize the support requirements, both because you don't need them and also because it's expensive to have people working 24/7 for a long period.
Hi, my name is Amanda Chalfont, and I'm from Issaquah, Washington. My question is, space travel is inherently risky, and how do you cope with those risks and assess what is or is not necessary for the ultimate goal of the mission?
The main thing I would say is that we talk a lot about mitigating risk. We know that there is risk that, as you say, is inherent in space flight and all the activities that are required to do that. There's risk in launching people on the top of rockets. There's risk in having people live in a pressurized environment that could be damaged by orbital debris or a meteorite. There's risk in having people depend on systems to recycle their water and their air and to generate their electricity. And there's risk in doing maintenance activities when you have to go outside the space station like we saw yesterday. Things don't always work right. The key word is mitigating, and what we do is we have a very complex and mathematically based system for establishing probabilities of risk, and we try to manage and make sure that the probability of a problem that is a danger to the safety and well-being of the crew and to the accomplishment of the mission are managed at a level where we think that we can take care of anything that might come up out of the ordinary that we don't expect, because we know that those risks are there, and we also know that no matter how much you train, no matter how much you prepare, there's always something that you haven't thought of that is going to come up, and you're going to need to be ready to deal with it. And for that, we do training of the team here in Mission Control, of the astronauts that are on orbit, Mark, I'm going to bring you in because physical training is a part of that too for the astronauts. You want to keep them healthy, and maybe you could talk a little bit about that since you're here.
Well, one of the things that we look at is that we look at worst case scenarios a lot. So we're looking at emergency egress situations, emergency EVA situations, things like that. So we always have to have them in a state of preparedness from a physical fitness standpoint and a functional standpoint to be able to do their job for whatever that may be. Even on landing, if they land off course, 4 or 5 hours, off course, and they have to get out of the capsule and on their own without help and set up a camp to get the beacon set up so they can find out where they are, anything like that. I mean, they have to be physically able to do those things. So part of my job is to make sure they can do those things.
Okay. And so essentially it's kind of like being in the Scouts. Preparedness is the main thing, and you want to train for any potential thing that could go wrong, and then you prepare for the worst and hope for the best, and try to manage that risk as best you can.
Hi, my name is Adrian Wang. I'm from Bellevue, Washington. My question is, can you share more information about the recent helmet leak and how Mission Control responded to the emergency?
That's a really good example of how this team comes together when there is an unexpected problem. Yesterday, everything was going just exactly as we had expected it in the preparations for the spacewalk. Chris Cassidy and Luca Parmitano had checked out their spacesuits, and because they had just done a spacewalk a week ago, and it all went fine. Accomplished all the objectives and then some. So the team here had already been doing a lot of work to replan for this spacewalk that was planned yesterday, because they had taken care of so many of the get-ahead tasks that they were able to add some new tasks into what was planned for yesterday. And then when they stepped out the door, everything seemed to be going fine. And then Luca mentioned that he had some water inside of his helmet, and that he didn't think it was going to be a problem. They finished their first job, both Chris and Luca did. And then because your buddy system, kind of like when you're diving undersea, Chris went over to check on Luca because he was reporting this water problem, and he started having some problems with his ability to communicate, and that there was a sensor that showed that tracks carbon dioxide levels inside the space station. The folks here in Mission Control saw that wasn't working properly. And so Chris took a look inside of Luca's helmet, and he saw a lot more water than Luca even knew was in there. And at that point, they reported that to Mission Control, and the EVA team told the flight director, Dave Korth, that, hey, we think this is a problem that we're not going to be able to continue doing the spacewalk. And so we recommend that you guys bring him in early. And Dave Korth said, yeah, you're right, let's go ahead and get him in before this gets to be a serious problem. And so they did that, and they had trained well in procedures to get them in quickly. They had Luca come right into the airlock immediately and get him started. They had Chris do a couple of cleanup tasks because you can't put two people through a door that small at the same time. So he did the cleanup and lash things down temporarily, and then he came back in so he could help Luca and they could close the hatch and get back inside. And then this team worked together through established procedures, a plan that had been discussed at length and practiced both by the crew and by the team here in Mission Control. And so they're all working from the same page in the same book, and we're able to get those guys back in. And here's some video of the team working together. You got Karen Nyberg and Fyodor Shikin also helping, Alexander Mazurkin and Pavel Litogradov all joined in to help get Luca out of his spacesuit, and they kind of got in the way of the camera. You can't really see him too well right here, but in just a second I think you're going to see Luca's face, and you're going to see him able to wipe that water off of his face, and that was the success. That's why that was a successful spacewalk, because even though we had a problem, we were able to get Luca and Chris back in safely. And here you can start to see Luca. They're having a wipe. He's getting a lot of water. He had water in his ears and water in his nose. And that's one of the things about water. It tends to coalesce into a globule because of the way water acts in space through surface tension, and it can collect in areas that you wouldn't want it to collect in and be a serious problem. So that's an example of teamwork in action and preparation in action. Mark, you anything to add?
No, I don't have anything to add to that. It was interesting watching it. So.
Hi, my name is Clay. Excuse me. I live in Edmonds, and my question is, what do you think, by your opinion, was the scariest moment in Mission Control?
I got to be honest, we don't get scared in Mission Control much. There are scary things happen, but we train so much and we practice so much and we study so much all of the systems that we work with that fear doesn't enter into it a whole lot. You have those moments when you say, "Uh-oh." But then your training kicks in and you start working the problem. And you focus your efforts on figuring out what you need to do, the order you need to do it in, what other potential problems could be associated with what's going on, and how you keep the entire crew safe, and how you make sure that you try to accomplish the mission that you're doing. So I don't think there really is a whole lot of fear here in Mission Control. There's some trepidation, and there's some immediate being startled when you have a problem like that. But training kind of kicks in, and you don't worry so much about it. You work to get the job done. Mark, anything to add there? You work with these astronauts in training all the time.
Yeah, but I'm not in Mission Control, so it's very different from me, from you guys. So I don't really see anything in my normal day that startles me. You know, a piece of hardware breaks, we just figure out how to fix the hardware and go back to doing what we need to do. So, that's about it.
Okay. I'm sorry, not a really exciting answer about fear, because we kind of train it out of ourselves.
Hello, my name is Josh. I'm from Gig Harbor, Washington, and my question is, we have recently learned that one of the dangers of the Mars mission would be boredom for the astronauts. And so what do astronauts on the International Space Station do to keep themselves busy and entertained when they have like some sort of free time?
Well,
if they do have free time.
The favorite thing when they have free time is to look out the window at the Earth below. There's no doubt about that. We have a special module called the cupola, which is basically a 360-degree bay window. And there are 7 different windows, a big round one in the middle, and then 6 trapezoidal windows around it. And it gives you a 360-degree view of the Earth. And any astronaut I've ever talked to says whenever they get spare time, the number one thing they want to go do is go out and look at the Earth. Now, you got to remember that half the time they're going around the planet, it's dark. And so if you're over the Pacific Ocean, there may not be a lot to look at. And so they do have other things they like to do. They can watch movies on orbit. They can read books. They have multiple different ways of communicating with their friends and family on the ground. They have an IP Internet Protocol telephone that they can call down and talk to their friends and family. They have email that they can share messages with. They have a crew support internet local area network that they can actually access the network here, the internet here on Earth, somewhat directly, and go off and they can post tweets and Facebook things and do that. It's a little slower than your regular network is, but because of the limitations of the downlink capability on the space station, but it does allow them to have a lot of interaction with folks on the ground. And they enjoy each other's company. They enjoy learning about different cultures because there are so many different cultures involved in the space station, the different crew members and their backgrounds. And so I would say probably enjoying each other's company and becoming a team and continuing to work as a team and looking out the window are the most interesting things for them.
Hi, I'm Hans Martin. I'm from Yakima, Washington. And where is the ISS right now?
I'm going to look over my shoulder. Right now, the International Space Station is orbiting over the Gulf of Mexico, just off the coast of Florida.
One quick question. How do you wake the crew up in the morning? Is there a special protocol for that? Is there an alarm clock?
Different crews do that differently. It's kind of a personal preference thing. In the shuttle days, we used to wake the crews up with morning wake-up music. But on the space station, we generally don't do that. They have alarms that they can set on board for themselves, but no special notes. We do have a daily planning conference that starts the day, but that's about an hour and a half after the crew wakes up. But that's always something that they want to make sure that they're ready for. And in talking to different astronauts, some of them wake up early. Some of them wake up just right before the daily planning conference. But they've got an hour and a half worth of time where they can have a morning meal and talk about themselves and amongst themselves, I should say. And they do a preliminary inspection of the different areas of the space station, making sure everything's good. But no main wake-up call. It kind of depends on the crew and how they want to do it themselves. All right, so I understand that's all the time we have for today. I want to thank Mark Gilliam for being here with us today, and I want to thank you all for your great questions. I understand you've got a great exhibit there with the full fuselage trainer from the space shuttle, and Destination Station, I believe, is at your museum. I hope you take an opportunity to go see it. Thanks again.
Thank you.